What is going on, guys? We are back playing some more Surviving with EnderIO, and today we're going to be discussing the Relocator Obelisk, and then along with that we're going to discuss a couple other blocks that EnderIO offers that work very well with it, but of course the main focus today will be on the obelisk itself. So I just have to say right out the gate that this obelisk gets my stamp of approval for being my favorite mob spawning technique thus far in modded Minecraft. I have yet to come across a better method for this that uses so little power and is so effective for the cost of like how much it takes to make it and get it set up and running. So unfortunately, a lot of people come to EnderIO and they see powered spawners and they think, oh yeah, this is the way to go, because there really isn't much documentation on the Relocator Obelisk. But I recently found out about it, I messed around with it a little bit, and it's just blown me away. So I'm going to actually show you guys that instead of just continuing talking about it. But before we get into that, I just want to say quickly, yes, there are a lot of changes to the base. I cleared out this whole area. I made sure to make it look super nice for our series. And then right here is where we're going to be working today. I know building is not a huge part of this series, but I did want to make it look at least a little decent since we're going to be spending a fair bit of time here. So first things first, we need to do a bunch of crafting. So the first thing that we are going to make today is going to be the Relocator Obelisk. Now this, of course, is going to be the most expensive part of this build, but I say that relatively speaking because it is pretty easy to make once you've got a couple resources. So to make this, it's going to be the Aversion Obelisk and then 4 Prismarine blocks. Now, a couple tricks if you're playing in a mod pack, instead of actually having to go and get either the block or the shards, you can easily make the shards using actually Addition's Atomic Reconstructor. Because I'm pretty sure you can turn quartz into these. It does take a little bit of power to do, so it might be a slightly lengthy process with recharging it and going each time, but you should be able to get these relatively early on. So it's going to be those blocks, and then of course the Aversion Obelisk, and to make this, it requires 3 Solarium, 2 Energetic Alloy, a Machine Chassis, all very easy to get. If we haven't covered Solarium yet, it's just gold and soul sand in an alloy smelter, and then lastly, a Tormented Enderman Head. Now, unfortunately, this is going to be probably the most annoying part to come across because you are going to need to use a brand new machine, the Slice and Splice, and along with that, you're going to need an Enderman Head. Now, everything else is pretty simple to make. Again, some Solarium, water bottles, and a basic capacitor. The Enderman Head you can get from killing Endermen, and you can increase your chances using the Ender. I went through a regular diamond sword because I needed Ender Pearls anyway, used the whole thing up, and then of course used a little bit of the Ender here just to finish things off and make it a little bit easier. Only came across one Enderman Head. I kind of stopped after I got the Enderman Head, but once you have that, you should be good to go. If we want to look at the Slice and Splice machine recipe, we can check right here. It's very simple to make. You can basically use any monster head, and then it's going to be 5 Solarium, a pair of shears, an iron axe, and a machine chassis. So it's a very simple machine, and the reason I'm very briefly going over it now is because it's not super complicated to have work. So we're going to grab all of these out. We're going to come over here. Obviously it needs power. You're also going to have these 2 slots up here, which are going to have an axe and shears. You can put any set in there and it should work perfectly fine. And then you can just shift click all of this stuff in there. It knows how to fill it in, and then it's going to make it. There are a couple different recipes that you'll use, but really the only difference is going to be in the head that you're putting in there, and then some recipes use silicon, but for the most part they're similar, and you can see it uses some durability from the different tools that you have in there, but it's really not that much. I don't think I've ever had to replace them in any series I've ever done that involves this. So now we're going to grab the stuff out and make the first obelisk, the Aversion one. So we can come over here and craft that. Now if you want to see what this one does, it just prevents mobs from spawning within its area of effect. So this is pretty much just going to build off of that idea. Not extremely similar. If you look at this one, it relocates mobs that spawn within its area of effect. But of course, it's not going to prevent it in any way, shape, or form, because that would defeat the purpose completely. So something to note about this that I was recently informed of is the reason the Relocator Obelisk is so great on servers is because it does not check in its current radius of what's in there. It checks what's going to spawn. So before the mob even spawns, it checks it, and then when it spawns, and I've just been told this but I haven't actually seen if it's true because I don't really know what relates to server usage, but it's a lot lighter on server load because it checks them when they're spawning. It doesn't look for things in every single block. So a pretty interesting little tidbit that someone informed me of on one of my videos. So do not worry about using this on a server with a huge range of 160 blocks. When you've got the max capacitor, it should not be that much of an issue. So now that we've got the Relocator Obelisk ready to go, we need to discuss what we're going to put in it. So before I actually hook it up upstairs, I'm going to put it down here so we can take a look at it, since there are a couple things we need to discuss. So right now you can see that it's 0 out of 100,000 RF. And if we look in here, it's pretty similar to every EnderIO machine. You've got the power storage here. Without any capacitor, it maxes out at 80 RF per tick. And you have a slot for a capacitor, of course. And then you've got this 4x3 in the center. It has a bunch of different vials in here. So these are slots for soul vials. If you don't know what soul vials are, they're pretty much a vial that EnderIO offers that allows you to trap the soul of a monster in it, and then you can use it for various different things. If you're trying to make a powered spawner, you can do that. Essentially, all it's going to do is specify the specific mob that you want to be targeted by the Relocator Obelisk. So if we come in here, I've got 4 different soul vials. I am not using up nearly as many as I could because we don't really need to worry about them yet. But if you're playing and you want to get every single mob that you have around you, in the Hermit Pack series, you know, I have anything from magma cubes there to husks, zombies, creepers, endermen, really just everything possible, concussion creepers. Everything offered is specified and gets dropped into the mob farm that I'm actually using. But if you're playing with just vanilla mobs, then you probably won't fill this whole thing up. So you can put these in there, you click them in there, and all this is going to do is specify what should be relocated. So if all you have in there is a creeper soul vial, that is all that will be relocated. So it allows you to kind of filter things out right out the gate without having to worry about anything else. Along with that, you can see that it has a range of 64. That's what it starts out without any capacitor in there. You can even show the range. So 64 blocks is not that much, but you can see it extends and it's a complete square around this. So it does go underground too, which is very nice because that means that it can get mobs that would otherwise not be spawning during the day because it can grab things from caves. So we can get rid of the range. You don't really need to worry about configuring. It does have a redstone mode, but if we take a look then and grab a capacitor out, and I got to make sure I don't accidentally right click with one of these, but if we get a capacitor out, today we're going to be using a double layer capacitor just because I don't have enough power generation yet for the octatic. I would recommend an octatic though if you're playing in a mod pack because it should be really easy to get the required 720 RF per tick, but that also makes it up to 160 range, which is enormous. So if we look at this right now, it's going to have 300,000 internal buffer and require 240 RF per tick. Again, that's really the only thing that changes other than the range, which is now 96. Again, relatively large range. It's pretty hard to tell how big it is if we look out there. But if we look out the front door, you can see it pretty much stretches all the way over across the lake, and it'll go down pretty darn far. So something to keep in mind is if you're putting it relatively high in the sky and you want it to get caves, make sure that you are going to be no higher than it going down to, I would say probably like 11 is a safe bet if you want to cover all caves. So obviously if you've got an octatic capacitor in there, you don't have to worry that much, but it is something to keep in mind if you're building it really, really high up. So we're going to we're good to go on breaking this and setting it up now. A couple of things in here that are just going to go along with this. Got the item conduits to get the items that are going to come. And lastly, we are going to be crafting a vacuum chest because this will allow us to pick up all the items when the mobs drop and just die on impact. There are a lot of different ways to set up mob farms like this. You can do them when, you know, if you're in a mod pack, you can have them go onto spikes, you can have them go onto conveyor belts and kill them yourself. Lots of different ways to do it. Obviously, we really don't have all those options right now. There are a couple ways that you can kill things using EnderIO, but we're not going to get to those yet. We'll eventually kind of mix things up a little bit and change this farm up later in an episode when we get to the Killer Joe, but we're not going to do that just yet. So we're just going to drop things and get their the loot from them when they die. Not going to get heads off of it, unfortunately, but eventually we will, and that'll be really nice. So the first thing that we have to do is put a diamond in and put pulsating nuggets around it because we need a pulsating crystal. And then the recipe is just a chest, pulsating crystal, and 7 iron. Really cheap for the vacuum chest. This is extremely effective, and this is one of those kind of additional blocks that'll be helpful in most builds, but we're just going to showcase it in this one. I've got the chest to store them in. Not nearly enough storage for what we're going to be doing today, but eventually we will get to the EnderIO storage system. We're just not there yet. And then along with that, we are going to have some conduit binder that we'll turn into Conduit Facade, and then we'll paint that with these blocks here, just so it looks a little bit nicer. Now, one thing to note before we set this down is there is one other obelisk that can help out with this a little bit. So if you're worried about Endermen teleporting away when they start getting hurt, unfortunately, the Relocator Obelisk only can teleport mobs once. So if you have an Enderman that teleports in and then out, it's done. It's not coming back to you. You're not going to get it teleported back in because of how the Relocator Obelisk targets things that just have spawned or are going to spawn, and not things that are already existing in the area. So this one right here, the Inhibitor Obelisk, can be given power to inhibit teleportation within its area. Now this does inhibit teleportation of Endermen, so you can easily just have it right where the Endermen are going to get damaged and prevent them from teleporting away. It's super duper nice to work just perfectly with the Relocator Obelisk. I use that along with it in my Hermit Pack Let's Play, but we're not going to have to worry about it now because they should die the minute they hit the ground. So they actually might not. I don't know if they're going to get enough fall damage from where this is dropping them, but either way, I'm not going to worry about it right now. So we should have everything in the inventory right now, and we're going to take a little bit of a trip up to the top of this area. So I already put down some ladders so we can easily get up here. And ooh, do I have stuff in my inventory to patch? There is a hole up there for us to get in, so I don't know if I have stuff in my inventory that we need to patch this up. So let's grab out all this stuff in here, just miscellaneous stuff that I haven't moved in yet. And I think I have, yeah, so we've got some clear glass here. Now there is clear glass all the way around this. I know you can't see it. That is because the clear glass is actually clear for a change. So we'll make our way up here, we'll put it down, and it's probably immediately going to start working because it should be getting power from the photovoltaic cells up here, which is something we do have to be a little bit cautious about. I did mix and match some of the cells up here, but we will definitely be getting enough power during daytime for it to work. And then I've got a nice little capacitor bank there to work as a buffer for this. So I'm going to place this down, and honestly, I should probably... Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this and we're going to change the output to active with signal, which means it's not going to output power to this at all, which is perfectly fine. Is that not in the center right now? Why did I think that would be in the center? Oh my gosh. Okay, so we got to build out here a little bit because I, for some reason, thought that would be in the center, and it is not. It's one block away from the center. Yeah, so it needs to go there. Oh, please let me get this when it drops. Okay, there we go. So it's going to go right here. Okay, so there we go. We're going to put all of the different soul vials in there. You can see the names kind of going across them if you hold shift as to what they are. It tells you Enderman, Skeleton, Zombie, and Creeper. So we don't have spiders in here. We don't have witches in here, stuff like that. We don't really need to worry about those right now. I don't really feel like dealing with spiders and how they could possibly, live in here. We've got that. We now have the capacitor in there. We can show the range and see that it goes pretty far underground, which will be good. The caves, it extends out pretty far around here. We want to make sure we turn that off though for the time being. And then I think what we actually want to do is, we can turn it on up here and then we can go downstairs and put the stuff down after stuff is already falling and dying. Okay guys, so I actually ended up deciding against what I said I was going to do. We're going to put down the vacuum chest first because I've had pretty bad experiences with creepers falling on my head and then exploding, and even though they should die on impact, I really don't want to deal with that on camera again. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take out all these conduit binders and we are going to be using them to make Conduit Facade. So pretty much you're just going to put 8 around the edges and you're going to get a facade. It's going to not be painted yet. We're going to make a fair bit of these. 14 should be enough. I've made the painting machine, just a simple machine. All you're going to do is take whatever block you want them to look like, and you are going to put it in the one that looks like a little bit of a paintbrush. And what I need to go do now real quick is just count what we're going to need. So we've got the central block right here, and that's where the vacuum is going to go. And then we're going to run it 1, 2, 3, 4 on the cobblestone and 2 on the andesite. Yes, that should be fine. So then 2 on the andesite. So I actually made way more than we're going to need. So we need 4 on this cobblestone right here. And it's relatively fast. Unfortunately, we don't have any upgrades in there yet, but we'll do that. And then we need 2 on the polished andesite. So we'll get those ready to go. And that's where the item conduits are going to go. Now, unfortunately, having a double chest is going to maybe work for less than like an hour of AFK time with how effective this is. But we'll figure out another way to get around it. I just wanted to get to this pretty much as fast as possible because of how useful it is. And I do have a plan in mind with where we are going with the series. So this is kind of helping us get there a little bit faster. So we now have all of the facade that we need. We can run in here and put it down. So we're going to put the vacuum chest here. And then we can run the item conduits all the way over. So like that. And then we don't really need to worry about putting any down there because we won't see that. But then like so and up. Now you can then put down the facade on this if you have it out. You can say we want the 2 andesite right there. You got to click on the center part of it. And well, that's not what you want to see. Okay, that's a little bit unfortunate right there. I don't actually know why that's happening because it looks perfectly fine in my inventory. Huh. That is interesting. So it shouldn't matter if these are here and not a regular block, but because it would make me kind of flip out, what we're going to do is we're just going to cave for the moment and we're going to break these blocks down here and just place it down below this. It'll take an extra conduit or 2, but it really shouldn't be that much of an issue. So we'll go like that, and then we just need to get down and actually change the conduit itself down here to be extract, always active. And if we come up here, you can see it's already started picking up this stuff, which is why it was disappearing and not going into my inventory. We can put this back down here, and we actually got to make it out of here first before we cover this up. But cover it up like that, and boom. So it looks like we only needed the 2 polished andesite right there. But now we've got this vacuum chest. You can again show the range on this one. So we want to make sure that it's just big enough for this area so we can go down to 5 just to make sure. That'll encompass the glass too, but it should just cover this one area right here. Again, we want to make sure it doesn't show the range. We're not going to put any item filters on it right now. It's got its own internal storage. You can disable it with redstone. All the usual stuff that comes along with EnderIO blocks. And now it's about time we get out of here. So breaking this, it should get sucked up by that. Boom, there we go. And then we're just going to put down a double chest right here. We can hook up more if we actually need to. If we want to see the conduit that should be hooked up right here then too, we can just pull out a conduit. You can pull out any conduit, any facade, really anything. It'll allow you to see any of the facade or conduits that are around you, even if they're hidden. This one's going to be on insert, and boom, there's our stuff in there. So the last thing that we have to do is fill this in with some clear glass. Everything's good to go there. And then we got to go up and turn this system on. I also have those vines hanging outside the door. I thought they looked really nice because, of course, we're in a jungle right now. But I'm starting to rethink it considering it's going to grow down to the ground. And then it's just going to be right in front of the door, bothering me every single time I try and run in there. So may have to rethink that a little bit. So we are going to break this. Oh my gosh, I just felt like I was going to fall there. And we just need to set this to actually output power. And, okay, so we're going to set this to active with signal so that we can turn this one on right here. Always active. And then we are going to back up as much as possible because I feel like we're going to get shot the minute we turn this thing on. Okay, so there we go. It now should be going. We'll grab that and let me just verify that it's okay. Yep, there we go. Okay, you can see it has some particle effects to it. So let's get this glass down and get out of here and head back downstairs and watch this thing work like magic. So it should be transferring the 240 RF per tick that it needs. Significantly more than enough right now since we have the capacitor bank. And now once we get down here, we'll head inside and we can wait. Okay guys, so we are back. Now I waited for it to become nighttime, and unfortunately this whole system doesn't work very well when you first start it up because obviously there are already mobs that are in your world and there aren't going to be a ton of new ones spawning. So if you do leave and then reload the area that you're in, it is a lot more effective. And obviously with the octadic capacitor, it does become more efficient, but it's been nighttime for maybe like 2 minutes now, maybe a little bit less, and these are the drops that we are working with. So this is what you're going to get, and hopefully we'll get to see some mobs drop here. Obviously adding on the octadic capacitor is going to be very great because, as you can see, there's a lot of mobs on the map that either haven't been caught now because they either wandered in or aren't in the range, but there's also a lot of guys that are going to be in caves. And once it starts chaining, it becomes a lot better. And what I mean by that is when all the mobs that are spawning are getting sucked up by this thing, more are going to keep spawning and spawning and spawning because there's a ton of room for them to spawn in your world. And then, of course, they're going to get sucked in again. So when the range upgrades to the max using the octadic capacitor, it is insane. Hopefully, I will have enough photovoltaic cells to keep that running consistently next episode so that you guys can see it. And if you do really want to see how efficient it can get, then you can feel free to go over to my Hermit Pack series where I have this thing running, and it's absolutely insane. I've got tens of thousands of things of pretty much every mob drop, hundreds of heads, really everything. And then on top of that, we've got the reliquary stuff, which of course turns into even more mob drops. So it works better than I could have ever even imagined. And for the investment that you're putting into it, the return you're getting is absolutely absurd. It's a little bit disappointing right now that it's not showing things as great as I would like it to. But you can see that creeper, if you watch on the map there, if you rewind the video, or if you noticed it, the creeper spawned, you could see its icon for a split second, and then it got dragged over here, and then it fell down, died, the stuff got collected, and got put right over here. So, pretty cool setup. My favorite block in EnderIO by far, again, outside the conduits. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you found it entertaining or informative in any way, please feel free to give it a like, as it does help me out a lot. And I will talk to you guys later.